As Rangers fans, we know that a goaltender is the backbone of a hockey team. At Abundant Wealth Management, we are your financial backbone, offering financial planning, wealth management, tax planning, and estate planning services. To schedule your free consultation, head to www.abundant-wealth.com. That's www.abundant-wealth.com. Abundant Wealth Management. Live, plan, triumph.
You're listening to Rangers Radio, your home for end-to-end coverage of the New York Rangers. With your hosts, Brendan Azoff, Zach Domino, and Steve Pappas. Blue Shirts fans, the puck drops now.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Rangers Radio. We're going to have a great show today to talk about who we all think the next captain of the New York Rangers should be, talk about the Kirill Kaprizov news that came out, and, that could end up in a New York team as well. So we have some fun stuff to talk about, even though it's still the off season. But before we dive into all those topics, we'd be remiss if we did not remember all those who lost their lives 24 years ago today on September 11th, and remember the heroic efforts of all the brave first responders on that day as well. It's a day that no New Yorkers will ever forget. And I know 24 years later, I know we were all pretty young when it happened, but it's still a day that sombers you, even all this time has passed since.
Yeah, it was my first day of preschool, so I've got a bunch of photos of me as a kid. I know I'm aging myself here, not in a great way, but I got a bunch of photos as a kid of just that date, before everything happened, which is absurd. Both my parents worked in those buildings in the late 90s, I believe. So it's everybody's got sort of like their connection to the World Trade Center, whether you're 27 years old or if you're 15 years old or if you're 45 years old. Like, there is some connection if you grow up in North Jersey or Long Island or New York. There's some connection to it. So it's a date that is going to be, will always be synonymous with New York, and, never forget. You never forget the day.
Yeah, it shows you how little so much means in life, but at the same time, those things can also be the things that galvanize you. And sports is one of those things, right? I remember George Bush throwing out the first pitch was a huge thing. I know it's a meme right now, and it's kind of it's me and Steven to talk about Aaron Rodgers. We both had to deal with him now, but Aaron Rodgers running out with the American flag on 9/11 against the Bills 2 years ago. Sports is a little bit of an escape from stuff like that. I even know tonight the president is going to the Yankee game. So yeah, it's interesting how at the same time where it makes you realize that something like sports literally doesn't matter. And three guys like us who literally live and breathe with our team, specifically the Rangers, it also is in those moments such a powerful thing. And the Rangers being a New York team will always, not be as synonymous with 9/11 as some of the other teams are, but, playing your games in Madison Square Garden, there will always be that connection. So it's a day that definitely lives in infamy. And if you were someone who was impacted by it, we're thinking about you. But hopefully tonight you can turn on one of your teams and kind of just have a little bit of escape from everything that's going on in the world. And today we'll talk a little bit about our escape being the New York Rangers and how that season's coming up. And sometimes it's a terrible escape. So especially last year, it's one that an escape that you're looking to escape from. But yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of this stuff is meaningless.
It's very hard to segue from something as impactful and serious as 9/11 was, right, to then talk about something as meaningless in the grand scheme of things as hockey and the New York Rangers. But one of the most memorable moments and pictures in Rangers history is the picture of Mark Messier, the captain of the Rangers at the time, wearing the FDNY helmet on the ice at MSG, and how that whole team kind of became a community and became that escape for everybody in New York as they were going through what they were going through. And it's almost fitting that today on this episode, we're going to be talking about who's going to be the next Ranger that gets to wear that C on the sweater. And I think this year, after how tough of a season it was for the Rangers last year, it's almost important to reflect on what the captain means, not only to the team, but the community, and how it has to become the Rangers. You're bleeding blue through your blood as the captain of the team. And I think Mark Messier encapsulated that when he was the captain of the team. And obviously that picture speaks 1,000 words, right? And now we're sitting here in 2025, 24 years later, talking about who's going to be that next guy that puts the rest of the team on their back and steps into that leadership role. And that's going to be obviously the focal point of our podcast here today. We're going to talk about Kirill Kaprizov as well. We're going to talk about New York Rangers rookie camp, which is Brendan Othmann part 5. That's something that I know all of us are going to have an opinion on there too. But yeah, we wanted to make sure that at the top of the show, we mentioned what today really is and what we're all thinking about. So anything else you guys want to add, mention, or are we just going to jump right in now and talk about who we think the next captain's going to be?
I mean, it's
save my rookie camp stuff when we get into it.
Football season starts is really like the fiscal year calendar. I know the calendar really says January through December, but everyone knows September is really when it starts. So even like our last episode when we were having a conversation was kind of before the game started. I'm so much more into like hockey now and basketball and everything now when your football team kicks off that week 1. So I'm getting very, very excited for the Rangers. We're still a little bit further away, than I would like to be. I wish opening night was tonight. But I think we play the Devils on September 21st. Is that opening night?
Correct. Yep.
It's a week 21st. From Sunday.
Yeah,
we're creeping up on it.
It'll be exciting, and hockey's interesting with when it comes to preseason, because in football you're going to see your quarterback maybe for a drive, maybe for 2 drives, and you don't play everyone every night during the preseason. But if a guy's going to play, he's going to get his ice time. It's not like he's going on the ice for 5 minutes and then not skating anymore. So you do get to watch your guys play during preseason, specifically when it comes to hockey. You know how big line combinations are. We're going to see how Sullivan kind of plays around with those lines. But this preseason will be a very interesting one for the Rangers because, alluding to what you just said, Brendan, about the rookie camp, we may have 3 or 4 of those young guys only going for 1 or 2 spots. So to see how Sullivan kind of distributes those minutes will be interesting.
People forget about some of these guys that you find in the preseason. If you go back 2 years, right? Matt Rempe, obviously his big come up was against the Islanders on the Stadium Series. If you go back to the preseason, he was fighting in the preseason against the Islanders. I remember very vividly talking to Vince Mercogliano right after that preseason game that he played, got in a fight. I was like, what are the odds that this kid makes the team? It basically was like, there's barring some sort of catastrophe, there's really no reason for him to be on this team. And then 4 months later, he's, taking the ice at MetLife, out for the Stadium Series, making an impact. And he's basically been on the NHL ice ever since that. So you think the preseason is, Will Cooley. Yeah. You don't want to get these guys hurt. Zibanejad got hurt at one point during the preseason last year, this and that, but it's more finding guys that could be role players or guys that down the line, if Gabe Perreault comes out and lights up the preseason, he might not be on the team to start the year. And I'd be very shocked, even if he has the greatest preseason of any player in National Hockey League history. I think it'd be very unwise for him to start at the National Hockey League level, just
Agreed.
with where the whole setup. He's not going to be in the top 6. I'd rather him stay away from the bottom 6 and play that role. And we've seen to, be able to do that with guys like Kakko and Lafreniere, just shove them in the bottom 6 to start their career. So if he's got to start at the AHL, no matter how good his preseason is, then so be it. But this is where you find out the, guys like Perreault that you haven't necessarily seen. Also the guys like Berard and Othmann and guys that you're still waiting to see what exactly this player is. And I think Brett Berard, we have some sort of idea, but you gotta show it to me again, right? I've noticed this a lot with the Mets fans, and I'm bringing it back to different sports, but a lot of people are a lot of fans are resting on, oh, well, he was good this year, he was good last year, or whatever. It doesn't matter what happened last year, right? And that's just the nature of sports. Brett Berard was a great piece last year, and he was able to produce offensively when he got his chances. Brendan Othmann was a good piece, just wasn't able to produce. Those two could flip-flop at some point this year, and then all of a sudden you're looking at Brendan Othmann being the guy that's producing. Just because it happened last year doesn't mean it's going to happen this year. Othman getting another chance at rookie camp. I think, the people that are dogging him, the kid's 22 years old, like enough. Like he's still a child. I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I think a lot of people's opinions would be on Othman, would be different on Othman if a few of those just went into the back of the net. And of course, there's a huge difference between them going in or not going in. But there were some where he literally couldn't do anything. Like he was at the doorstep. And some of these were just going in.
He was a great Gabe Perreault, like game
too.
one. Game one, Gabe Perreault sets up Artemi or Alexis Lafreniere for a wide open goal, and he fanned on. Like that's like why he doesn't have a National Hockey League point because Alexis Lafreniere swung and missed. Like that's not
everything that happened last year. Specifically,
I remember two specifically for Othman, where like he was literally at the doorstep, and the goalie's eyes
didn't he score
and
they took it away.
I think so. There was one that might have went off his foot. I mean, the guy that I'm excited for, and I brought him up last season. And I think he's gonna be my guy this year, Mr. Morrow. I want to see Mr. Morrow play during the preseason.
Matty Morrow.
I think he's the guy where if his game, which I think will translates to the NHL, and Sullivan gives him a shot, he drastically changes the makeup of your 6 defensemen. Because if he doesn't play and you list the other 6, we're kind of back to where we were. Where Gavrikov's obviously a huge upgrade, but then you're dealing with a bunch of sort of defensive defensemen that can't really move the puck down the line from there. Where if you can add a Scott Morrow, when he's on the ice, gives you another guy that can move the puck from behind the blue line like Fox does. Plus, at his best, if Sullivan's really going to be a guy that evenly distributes the 2 power play lines, he can quarterback that second power play. So I think he's a guy where if his game can translate, and we'll get to see that during the preseason, he could take those 6 defensemen in that defensive core to another level.
Well, since we're kind of on the topic already, it's very interesting that Brendan Othman's at his 5th Rangers rookie camp. And, there was an interview, I think Vince put it out there, where he talked about how he's excited to be there. He wants to lead that group and show that he's ready to make the roster. But Brett Berard's not. And to me, that's an indication that the Rangers view him as pretty much a lock on this regular season roster. And I think we've talked about that throughout the, episodes that we've done. But Brett Berard played his way onto the team last year. All the hype about Othman, all the, forecasting for Gabe Perreault. And it was really Brett Berard who kind of took the show and showed that he's, out of the 3 right now, the most NHL ready to produce. I think it's very interesting, and I know, Steven, you talked about it, but to me, if Brendan Othman is not on the Rangers opening night roster, at this point, it's kind of past him, right? Especially with the New York Rangers. I know he's young, but his opportunity here seems gone with the Rangers, not the NHL. Yeah. But no. I think at the stage that Gabe Perreault's at with 5 games last year, it makes no sense for me not to see Othman in that opening night roster and just give him a little bit of a runway. Give him the confidence to make the team out of camp, let him play a little bit, let Perreault get some games in the AHL level.
But can you have him in Berard? Like, I'm trying to think of the 12
forwards. Berard's so good. I think you can if you scratch Parsonen or.
But then who plays third line center? Because and I could be wrong, and we'll get into this. But okay, yeah, I like that.
Here's my argument. I mean,
I'm making that decision no matter. Brodzinski's better than Parsnip. Parsnip is the worst hockey player I've ever seen.
I love this nickname, dude. I love the nickname.
Matt kind of brought it up here with Berard. Like, I would like to see Brodzinski in this fast-paced, forechecking offense where you get a turnover, you pass the puck back, someone gets the puck on their stick, and they shoot a shot. Like, Berard, Brodzinski, and someone else on the left side. I have to look at the lineup as your third line. I like that. That's a lineup that when your team's good, your fans fall in love with.
Here's the thing, all right? And this is to your point, Brendan, about Brett Berard. I disagree with you on the fact that Brett Berard is the most NHL-ready guy on this roster, or of like those 3 guys that you mentioned. But he fit the need that the Rangers had more than an Othman or a Perreault, right? Like, you don't have a spot in your top 6. Let's face it. Othman and Perreault are top 6 guys. Putting them and playing them in the bottom 6, I feel, is useless. You're not going to get anything from them playing the, grinding forechecking minutes. There are guys that are supposed to be offensive guys. But Othman is in a situation where he needs power play time. Where's he going to get it at the NHL level here? There's just no way for him to crack that top power play unit. We sort of have that same discussion with Lafreniere, right? Like people are saying, give him more power play time. Where are you? I mean, where are you going to put him on that top power play unit between Mika, Trocheck, Panarin, Fox? I mean, JT Miller. There's your five. Again, there's really no
unit
spot.
Might get more runway under Sullivan.
It might,
because last year their power play was abysmal. So something's going to have to give.
Yes. And that could have just been a byproduct of the entire team being dog shit, right? So who knows? But back to my point of they're in a situation, Perreault and Othman, where they are sort of blocks. And it's not like it's nothing that they've done wrong, right? It's not like Othman's a bad player. We have no idea about Perreault because he's played 5 games and it is what it is. But
correct,
they're blocked at the NHL level by guys that are proven players. It's not like they're blocked by guys that beat them out in camp. If out of camp you told me Brennan Othman is playing over Mika Zibanejad or Lafreniere or so and so, like that's a problem, right? That's a problem because those guys should not get beat out by a 22-year-old 5th year basically rookie. So he's in a situation where it feels like a lose-lose. I think he's getting a lot of hate from the fans where it's undeserved because he's in a shit situation. Berard fits because they needed bottom 6 guys.
Yep.
Are we sure any of the 3 are in the opening night lineup? And what I mean by that
I think Brett Berard
is there a combination where the third line is Yuso, Brodzinski on a wing, Radish on a wing, and the fourth line is the fourth line that was last year before Rempe and Edstrom got hurt?
Yeah,
I would almost rather Berard on the third line to start that. I mean, that's
I would rather. I hate Parsnip, so if I look at that, I'm looking at a Radish, Brodzinski, Berard third line, which I think is sick, especially because Radish can kind of give you that. I think he had between like 15 or 17 goals last year. I don't know why we seem to like Parsnip. I don't know why. I think he's awful. I think he signed with the team, and some fans didn't even know he was on the team for like 3 or 4 games because he was literally like you didn't see anything he did on the ice.
He had a good 5-game run, but I think that if you look at the track record of Mike Sullivan, all the undersized forwards in that middle 6 that wind up finding success in his system, it would be a complete mistake not to have Berard in that third line spot. And I think that yes, you have Parson, and yes, you have Brodzinski. But if Othman comes out of camp flying or Perreault comes out of camp flying, you're going to make some spot on that second line for him. The Kreider's spot is up for grabs, in my opinion. So I think you're going to have to make it work because there are some – I know Will Cooley had a great year last year, but imagine the forechecking that would happen from a Berard, Brodzinski, Cooley line or something to that. Like there's ways to structure this roster where it's not just 1, 2, 3, and 4, but you have a 1A, 2A, or a 2A, 2B with the second and third line.
And let's be real, Will Cooley is a great third line player.
Great,
that's what he is. He's a great third line player on a good team,
like a Stanley Cup winning third line player.
He is not a second line player. So, to your point, Brendan, you're correct. If they are going to get Perreault shot out of a cannon to start camp, I don't know. I still would like to see him develop, but I feel like we've seen enough. Like we've seen enough where we've tried to rush these guys into playing top tier minutes or just minutes in general, and it doesn't work. There's Elias Anderson, Lafreniere, Kakko, the list, Kravtsov, the list goes on and on. So I wouldn't hate no matter what him starting in the American Hockey League, and if he lights it up, then sure, bring him up. But there is the spot for Brennan Othman on the second line if he, lights up camp. I think it's going to be interesting to watch how he plays in the preseason, what we hear from him out of camp, because Will Cooley could be the greatest third line winger the Rangers have ever had. If they can find somebody that plays the second line as a second liner should and produces at the level a second liner should while playing the play style of a second liner and not a third liner that has been bumped up.
Yeah. I mean, the hope is, if you do have to make a change, in my opinion, it's that I don't think there's any chance Perreault starts the season in the NHL, and I think that's smart. Like you said, Steven, I think if he has the best preseason of all time, he's got to grow a little bit. And I think giving him some more professional games at the AHL level is great. But he's the guy, like, say we need a little bit more offense. You drop Cooley potentially to the third line. You could insert Perreault into that top six. Who knows what it looks like? But right now I'm looking at a projected lineup. It would be
that's hydrogen bomb versus coughing baby. That's insane. You get absolutely destroyed.
Oh,
that threesome would get destroyed by.
I do not want Parsnip on this team. I do not want Parsnip on this team.
Have faith in Sullivan making the right decision.
So we're guaranteeing right now, or not guaranteeing. We're saying that we're pretty certain, over 95% certain, that to start the season in Game 1, Mika's on the wing of JT Miller.
Are we all in
agreement of that? And we're all saying that 10, 16, and 13 are getting the chance to start with each other.
Correct.
We're saying that the fourth line that was unbelievable before the injuries last year, and Carrick, Rempe, and Edstrom are getting the chance.
Yep.
So it's really
2 spots.
So it's the 2 spots, and one of them is going to Cooley. So it's where does Cooley fit between the
Cooley's in there? Cooley's in there on the second line.
That's what I'm saying. So it's either I think you either have Cooley play the second line to open the year, or if Othman winds up having a great camp and you think he's better suited for that role, then you have Cooley on the third line with Berard on the right and insert center here. But then again, that leaves the question of what do you do with Taylor Radish?
I think he's going to be on the third. I think he's going to be a third line. I think the third line center is between Parsnip and Brodzinski. Like, I don't think if one of them loses, like if Brodzinski loses, he's going to be pushed over. Radish is kind of good. Like, Radish is kind of good. And, like, I would love to see an Othman / Berard, Brodzinski, Radish, third line to start the season with the hope, like, you're hoping that someone plays. You hope it's not like a Cooley isn't good enough to move him down. You're hoping one of these young guys plays so well that the lineup construction just works, where it's Cooley, Brodzinski, Radish on the third line, which, again, when you look at Stanley Cup teams and roster construction, that's a great third line from an offensive punch and physicality. And one of these younger guys with maybe a higher offensive ceiling, whether it's a Othman, whether it's a Perreault, can step into that second line next to a JT Miller and a Zibanejad. And then you're looking at a lineup construction that's pretty good from a team that really couldn't make any outside changes from an offensive standpoint coming into this offseason. So the Rangers season is going to come down to the guys already on this team offensively taking a step kind of back. I say back to in time to 2 years ago, plus one of these young guys taking an offensive step forward. It's not like they have 4 or 5 spots that they need to fill.
No, but that worked itself out with injuries over the course of a year.
Of course,
but I think
that's true.
I know I'm short for time, so we talked about this for a little bit. Let's talk about the captains before I got to hop off. All right, so we started off by talking. We're all going to give our picks for the captains, so I'm going to put it on the screen right now. Zook, I'll let you go first because you are the one that went different from Steven and myself. So I agree with your pick. I think he's right in the running with it. But why do you think it's Miller over Trocheck?
I'll start off by saying I think it's obvious. Like, I think everything that's been said about him when we acquired him and since then is that he is the leader of this team. I honestly think Vinny Trocheck, not a bad decision, is just like a JT Miller light and is almost like the perfect assistant captain to JT Miller. I just think JT Miller is the guy. I think JT Miller is just similar play style as Vinny Trocheck, but just better all the way around. And I know that doesn't mean anything. Your best player doesn't have to be your captain. But I think he has the other side of it where he's built as a captain. I think JT Miller is a guy where if he's the captain of your team, and when you look at a captain of a team and you say, I want my team to play like that, JT Miller is that guy. Not that Trocheck is anything like Trouba. As we saw a little bit last year, Trocheck sometimes there's a little bit more you want from him. I think maybe we kind of got obsessed with the fact of how he looked in between Panarin and Lafreniere 2 years ago. He was brought over to be a 3C. And that's who he is. Yeah. And not that a 3C can't be your captain, but if the 1C is there and is someone who fits the makeup of a captain, I just think it's an obvious choice. So if it was Trocheck, it's not one where I'm saying that's a miserable choice. Trocheck could be the captain of a team, But Miller's just a guy that I'm definitely choosing before Trocheck for makeup, for ability, for skill. I don't think there's more prototypical captain on this team than a guy like JT. And you hear everything that Drury said about him since we got him. I think that JT Miller is going to be the captain of this team.
It's going to be a great rabbit hole to go down at some point. The whole Filipino conundrum, whatever you want to call it, like Trocheck was brought in to be that 3C, right? And assuming Heedle never gets hurt, like we're still talking about. Yep. We're not talking about Trocheck, I don't think, at the level that we're talking about.
We're not talking about JT Miller because we're not moving on from Heedle.
Correct. Yep. Correct. So like there's this huge rabbit hole to go down. But Brendan, I know you got to go, so I'll let you go. Next.
Appreciate it. No, I think that we're both going to say similar things. But to me, when the Rangers were going through their problems, which was the majority of this past season, it was always Trocheck that took the mic and was speaking out. And I think if you listen to some of the interviews, now JT Miller was a mid-season addition, so that might change as they come into this year. But I do think that Trocheck's kind of been the glue that everybody can kind of go around and talk to. And I think that's important. Now, there is a caveat, right? There could not be a captain. I know there's a couple of comments that say that, and that's something that they'll have to decide, especially if there's going to be the off-season additions that everybody's hyping up. I know you guys will wind up talking about Kaprizov after I have to hop off, but that's a guy that could wind up coming over. You have the McDavid, you have Eichels, you have all these guys that are free agents that could very well wind up signing if they make it to free agency with New York, and then all of a sudden they're the clear-cut choice, right? But to me, Trocheck's been the glue guy. If you mentioned the Edel injury, he took that role. He ran with it. He's playing with Panarin, Lafreniere. Last year was a down year. He was the most vocal guy. He was the one showing fight. And I think he just does the little things. He's healthy. He's around. Now, the sarcastic answer I wanted to give was if you make Mika Zibanejad the captain, that seems the only way they're able to trade bad contracts. So if you look at their track record, you make Mika captain. If he doesn't perform, that's the only way somebody else will take him in a trade. But obviously, that's sarcasm. I want Mika to have a
scoring 40 this year. It's fine. He's scoring 40 this year.
Last week, he might. So I think Trocheck would be the guy if I had to pick right now that I would pick as the captain. But I was 50-50. I think that there really might not be one.
It's more likely that there's not going to be one for you guys in the comments. But if we came on here and said nobody, what's the fun in that, right? So we got to think about the.
We're not going to put it.
We got to
square there.
We got to think about the content machine that we got going on here. So Vincent Trocheck is my guy, and of course, like I feel like a lot of people are going to just focus on what he was like in the down years. Right, what he was like last year when this team was not going well, and he was the first guy to be speaking up. He was always vocal during the bad times. But if you go back 2 years to when they were on it, they went as he went almost. It felt like if he was going or when he was going, the Rangers were playing at their best. And come postseason time, he scored some big goals. And again, he's been here longer than JT Miller. And, you could obviously talk about Miller's first stint with the Rangers. But, Trocheck comes over in 2022 that year. The Rangers had made the playoffs in what, four years? I don't count the COVID year, right? So 4 years they had made the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah. So he comes in, and I'm not saying it's directly, his doing, but he has been here for this generation of the New York Rangers. There are, I will say there are a good amount of people that are Ranger fans right now that don't know, that would not remember watching hockey games where Vincent Trocheck was a Carolina Hurricane, where he was a Florida Panther. Like there's a generation of Ranger fans that only know this guy as a New York Ranger. So I think the way he is able to lead off the ice and the way he's been able to speak up off the ice and the way he's been able to prove that and show that on the ice in the 5 years, or what is it, 4 or 5 years that he's been with this team, I think he's a clear-cut captain. That being said, Larry Brooks is very high on JT Miller. I will trust everything that Larry Brooks says. So, I feel like either it's going to be no captain or it's going to be JT Miller. But if I were sitting in Chris Drury's spot, Vinny Trocheck would be getting that C. If not this year, at some point in the future.
Also, I got to hop off, but I do want to leave it on this. Kaprizov, he's a Ranger. All right. I'll see you.
We'll see you next week, Brendan. So 2 other things. You kind of alluded to one. Let me see. Can I make it just the two of us without him?
You're
Oh, there
getting
we go.
there.
Whoa.
Hang on.
Oh.
Whoa.
So two other things is one, you kind of said it that JT Miller was already a Ranger, and it was a long time ago. And like you said, if people don't remember Trocheck on the Panthers and the Hurricanes, they're certainly not going to remember Miller on the Rangers, but I do. And it doesn't add much, but I think it adds a little bit. Like I think of JT Miller, even though he's only been here for half a year, I think of him as a Ranger just because he grew up with us and he was already on the team. It's not like a quote unquote new guy. Plus, how much longer is Trocheck's contract for? Like this contract, not to say we're not going to re-up, but is this his last year or he's got 2 more years?
No, this is not his. He's not a UFA at the end of this year. I could look that up for you,
He
but
probably
I know
he probably has like 2 more years then, I think, and a good contract. But JT Miller is here for 7 or 8 years. And again,
Trocheck is here through 28, 29. So he's got this year, the year after, and he's got 4 years.
Okay. I'm totally wrong then. I was going to say like Trocheck has like 2 more years, and I know like I think JT Miller has like 6 or 7. I was going to say just a tiebreaker is like if someone's going to leave in the next year or two, you may not want to make him a captain. But no, if he's here for 4 years, and he has a great contract, Vinny Trocheck. I think at the deadline they were never going to move him for all the reasons that you said. Like if they moved him and didn't get a guy,
he's making a little over 5.5 in an era where the cap is going to explode. He's making over 5.5. I think it's 5.65 or whatever, but 5.65 with the cap exploding, that is going to be by the end of his contract. That is going to be a $3 million in this day and age player, which is insane.
If that line can get back to what it was 2 years ago, it's one of the better contracts in hockey. Like that's an unbelievable contract, and that's why everyone. All the articles you talk about Larry Brooks, any single article you were reading last year before we got to the trade deadline was the Rangers will never move him, but Trocheck was probably the most valuable asset that people would literally climb mountains to get if they found out that he was available because of the type of player he is, because of how he looks in the postseason, because of his contract. So, no, I mean, to put a button on it, again, if the Rangers came out and said that Vinny Trocheck was the captain, I would actually be happy. Like, I love Vinny Trocheck. I think he has captain material. But if you're holding a gun to my head and say, hey, look, here's $100,000. You got to bet it on somebody. I don't know why you'd be holding a gun to my head and giving me $100,000. But with that being said, I would be betting on JT Miller. And I also think that Vegas will be making those odds like tremendous. I think JT Miller is just the big favorite if they were to give someone a captain. But I think I'm saying what also you're saying, what also they're saying in the chat is there's probably a good chance that there's no captain to start off this year.
It makes more sense.
It makes sense. And it's Sullivan's first year. I think it makes sense for him to get to know everyone. This team's coming off of you don't know what's going to happen this year.
I like this.
Based on how it was last year. But there probably won't be a captain this year. There probably won't be a captain this year, and Sullivan may let it figure it out. If it's the case of what it was last year, where after every bad performance, Trocheck's the one going in front of the mic, then yeah, it's probably going to be him. If JT Miller now starting this season kind of takes over that role, and it's like him and Trocheck are both in front of the mic, or they're going back and forth, JT Miller is going to have something to say, but probably going to be no captain to start this season.
Do you want to hear a trivia question? Then I'll give it to you. Of all the seasons in National Hockey League history, how many times has a team without a captain won a Stanley Cup?
0.
2 times.
Oh,
do you know who? Close. And it's only done by one team. It was done by the Boston Bruins in 1970 and 1972. So
it literally hasn't been done since 72.
It has not been done since 1972. So if the Rangers do not name a captain by the start of this year, you can cross their name off as a Stanley Cup contender for this year.
Well, my bet last week was plus 3,000 for them to win.
I don't make the rules. You got to do some research. You got to research your bets. What can I say?
My plus 3,000 Rangers bet last year, and I know I had to leave early on Sunday, so I wasn't able to defend it.
Yeah, you can explain your bet.
My bet was I don't know if they're going to win the World Series. They're definitely not going to win the World Series. I don't know if they're going to win the Stanley Cup, but to piggyback off the fact that I think they're going to win the Metro, I think if you take them to win the Stanley Cup at the odds that they are this year, there's going to be a chance later in the season where you're going to be able to cash out positive. That's how high I am on the Rangers. I just think they're going to be so good. They're going to be winning the Metro that if you get them at the plus 3,000 right now, when those odds are updating throughout the season, you're going to be able to cash out at a positive. I'm high on the Rangers this year. If anyone listens I keep saying last week, Sunday, I think they're going to win the Metro. I think I'm looking at this roster right now. I'm kind of shading myself to how they performed last year and thinking about the last 2 years. And more so, I just think defensively, they're going to be elite. Having the best goaltender in hockey between the pipes, with having a good defensive structure, with obviously a guy like Gavrikov, who's an elite defensive defenseman. I think this team's going to figure it out because there's not going to be as much pressure on them to score. Or when they're giving up these goals 2 minutes in, that they're feeling that they have to come from behind. I think a lot is going to go well for the Rangers this year. That kind of starts with Sullivan's structure and how they're playing. I think they're going to be a hard team to play against this year, and that's almost better than a good team. Is a hard team to play against. And
for those
Sullivan and JT Miller are going to have the boys ready to play. They're going to have the boys ready to play. Scott Morrow.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Zook, we love you.
Morrow might win the Norris. Like, that's how crazy I'm willing to get. Scott Morrow may be in the running for the Norris, where
it is the second week of September, and we have gone off the rails already. This is incredible. How are we supposed to get through the rest of the year where you're saying Scott Morrow's winning the Norris Trophy? I'm all for it. If Scott Morrow wins, I will say this right now. If Scott Morrow wins the Norris Trophy, I will get a tattoo of his face just on my chest. I will put it down here right now. If Scott
Morrow wins the Norris, all my other predictions are coming true. The Rangers are winning the Metro and probably the Stanley Cup if Scott Morrow wins the Norris.
If Scott Morrow wins the Norris, then hell is frozen over. And it is sunny in Rochester in December. It'll be 85 degrees come Christmas time here. I love you, Zook. You are a fucking psychopath if you with some of these predictions, but we love it. We absolutely love it.
Okay, let's take it back a little bit. Am I that crazy for saying that I believe that what if I said Scott Morrow is definitely the third best defenseman on this team?
I think you're a psycho because Braden Schneider exists. Braden Schneider exists and has played National Hockey League games for 4 years now. I mean, he plays a different game than Scott Morrow does, but again, Scott Morrow's played in the AHL for the majority of his career. So,
and he looked bad professionally last year, but that was also in the playoffs.
If you project long term, maybe, but at this moment, absolutely not.
So is the second defensive pairing Schneider and Borgen? Are you confident in that?
I am in the fact that I don't distrust Mike Sullivan yet. So yes, if it was still Peter Laviolette, it would be Vakanainen and Susie. We will see come camp time who those two are playing with. But I am very glad to say that I'm not fully distrusting Mike Sullivan yet.
I hate playing defensemen on their offhand. But I just feel like you almost got I can't roll with a Vakanainen or Susie. Got either of them on the second pairing. I think Schneider's, and I'm not a Schneider guy, but I think Schneider's so much better than those two that you got to go Borgen and Schneider. If I saw a Morrow Susie third pairing in a defensive scheme that's a zone defense where I think Susie's trash, but he's even more trash in a man-to-man defensive system. That's an okay 6 for me. With having a guy like Euro as your seventh man, that's nice. Obviously, you'd hope that I don't think that's a Stanley Cup caliber second pairing defensive pairing between Borgen and Schneider, but I'm hoping I can be wrong. And I'm high on Morrow this year. With honestly saying I've seen him play 0 minutes of hockey. So I also want to say that out loud. I've seen
blind optimism. We absolutely love blind optimism. This is fantastic. I love this.
No, I mean, We're a bunch of Mets fans right here. The two
Fucking
of us up here are
Christ,
Mets fans.
this
The
is
two in the chats
awful.
are Mets fans. Ryan
So-
Helsley is the worst pitcher I've ever seen in the major leagues, and the Mets are the only team ever to be buyers at the deadline and get significantly worse. That's what I'll say about the Mets. I hate them.
I don't want to talk about the Mets. I don't want to talk about the Mets because I despise them. I think I hate them more than I hate the Rangers team last year.
Them. I think they're the least favorite team I've ever rooted for. They don't have it. They have none of the spark they had last year. They're more talented than the team last year, but give me last year's team 10 times over 10.
Over the last 3 seasons that I've had to watch of the sports teams that I root for, it was the Jets last year that had these high expectations and immediately shit themselves. The Rangers that had Stanley Cup aspirations and then shit themselves. And then the Mets who had, at least playoff aspirations and then shit themselves. I got a bet at plus 450, I think, for the Mets to miss the playoffs. It was like, I don't know what the number exactly was, but it was 10, 20 bucks to win 100. Yeah, plus 450. I made that bet 3 days ago. It's now down to plus 220.
For them to make the playoffs?
Looking for free money to miss the playoffs, to miss it.
Oh.
If you're looking for free money, the Mets missing the playoffs are still plus odds. So please go take that and go enjoy your profit come, the end of September. But that's not why we're here. We're not here to talk about the Mets. Ryan Helsley is awful, but let's get into another one of the big stories that have come out of this week. And Kirill Kaprizov rejecting I believe it was 7-year, $20 million a year, around that number. This 8 years, 128. That was through Elliot Friedman and the 32 Thoughts podcast. Oddly enough, I'm pretty sure Bill Guerin came out today and said that wasn't his that wasn't anybody in the organization leaking that. It wasn't anybody in the Kaprizov camp that leaked that, so he has no idea where that number came from. And sure, whatever you say, Bill. But at the end of the day, Kirill Kaprizov will be a UFA at the end of this year, barring any sort of in-season signing, which obviously can happen, but most players don't sign during the middle of the season. We saw it last season with Mitch Marner. That was the biggest guy out there that obviously had this offseason not signing a contract that bled into the regular season. He obviously goes to Vegas. Could Kirill Kaprizov have a future with the New York Rangers? I think 100% absolutely. Does it mean I think they're going to sign Kirill Kaprizov come July 1st next year? No. Would I put a bet on it right now? Absolutely not. But are the signs not there that Kirill Kaprizov could sign with the New York Rangers next year? I think you would be crazy to say wholeheartedly no, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is just another example of you want to pay your good young players as early as possible, because if they get right to that time where they can be a UFA, they're going to be a UFA and get paid. Hockey's like the extreme of that and a little different right now because proportionally the salary cap is just exploding. So like it's almost like a bad job if you don't wait another year if you can to sign a contract, because net effective, like this deal can go up 10% if the cap goes up another 10%. Just this deal. And then on top of that, he may just get a better base to even start from, where that base, then you're talking about 10% going up. He could blow this deal out of the water. But yeah, I think unless they offered him like a blank check at this point, he's got to wait until he's a UFA. He's that good. A lot of teams are going to have some money. Plus the cap is going up. It's like, what a time to be one of the best players in hockey and that premier free agent that he could be next year. And there's a lot of guys that I know are coming up, and it's going to be fun as like diehard hockey fans to see it. And we've already seen it the past few off seasons, but not to the extent where it's going to get as crazy during the offseason as it does with the other sports. And that's what makes the other sports exciting. Sure, the games are great, but it's everything that happens off the court or off the field or what could happen in the offseason with the trades, with the crazy free agency. Hockey's kind of been slowly getting to that point, but now with the cap exploding to where it has this offseason and last offseason and where it's going to get to in the future, hopefully we see some crazy numbers being thrown around, or some guys moving, or trades happening, or things that haven't happened in hockey, which has really been that traditional sport, which can take it to the next level. Because we all know, because we see it with playoff hockey, when you get eyes on the sport, people fall in love with it. It's just a lot of times fourth on people's totem pole between the NBA, between the NFL, and between the MLB, because a lot of people gravitate to those sports because there's so much outside of the 3 hours that those teams are playing, again, on their court or their field. So the salary cap exploding is going to be great, I think, just for getting eyes onto the sport. And the more eyes we get on the sport, it's like a circle. The salary cap will grow because there's more money being put into the sport. And look, you and Brendan know a lot more than me. I can't even opine if Kaprizov is going to be a Ranger next year. I haven't even gotten to that level yet. We'll obviously talk about it more towards the season. My mind is so small as to what I can think about. I'm still sitting here looking at the projected 4 lines of the Rangers, thinking if is it going to be Berard or is it going to be Othman? But boy, oh boy, if the Rangers can get Kaprizov on top of Miller, on top of some of their young guys taking the next step, on top of having Gavrikov and Fox, who I said on Sunday, it wouldn't surprise me if they're the top defensive pairing in hockey, plus having Igor signed for as long as we have. I mean, that makes you elite. That makes you elite right there.
The cap next year goes up $8.5 million. Is
that definite or projected?
It's projected, but it is very well established that it'll be around $104 million.
And when do they say for certain?
I don't have a timetable on that.
It's not like a set time that he comes out, that Bettman comes out and says this is going to be the cap. Because why I say that is
I think usually it's around the All-Star game or whatever they're going to do, probably around Olympics this year when they have that media conference with
hockey explodes with the Olympics. Don't be surprised if they say 8.5 and he comes out and he goes 9.5 or 10, because all winter people are talking about the Olympics and there's just a lot of eyes looking at the sport. Hockey grows the most when professionals are allowed to play in the Olympics. I mean, I'll always go back to it. The one that we lost to Canada in the goal, when Parise scored that goal to go into overtime, besides the Rangers, that's the best hockey I've ever seen. And I think if you look at maps, the growth of hockey from that Olympics was absolutely tremendous. That hockey's already growing. The cap's already expect to explode. We're coming off the 4 nations where people are already excited to watch international hockey. And now we're going to the pros being back into the Olympics. Gasoline's just going on this fire, baby. It's a good time to be in the NHL business for sure.
I will forever be grateful to be able to go to those first 2 games of the 4 nations this year in Montreal. And it was when you went in, you had no idea that this tournament was going to be what it was and the impact that it had on the sport and just, pop culture in general. What an unreal tournament. I cannot wait for the Olympics this year. But going back to Kaprizov, right? At least right now, $8.5 million, that is a full contract. $8.5 million is a full contract. So to sit here, if you're Kirill Kaprizov and say, I'm going to take a contract, I'm going to take XYZ right now, would be stupid. It would be very
fire your agent
unwise because because you have the possibility of exploding your value throughout the season, and in a year where an entire contract is moving into the salary cap, you could make so much more money. And that being said, it comes down to the point also of who is going to take less money to win. And I've heard it enough about Connor McDavid that he could be worth 30 million. He could be worth $100 million a year, and I think people would pay it if it was possible. But it's a matter of who wants to be set up in the situation to win. So Kirill Kaprizov, do I think he will end up injured? Most likely. I think everything sets up for him to end up being a Ranger. I think they will re-sign Panarin at the end of the year. That seems to be a way that seems to be going. But they will re-sign Panarin, Shesterkin, Kaprizov. We're gonna have that Russian threesome again. I think we're in for something special come the offseason. If it's not Kaprizov, then maybe it's McDavid, maybe it's Eichel. Who the hell knows? We are speaking hockey on early September. This is what it's all about. Just absolutely outlandish takes, and I love it.
I also think that, knock on wood, pray he doesn't get an injury this season. I think his base is already established. Like, I don't think he can ruin his value at all. He was injured last year for half the season. So I think all he can do is literally just play at the rate he was playing last year. I'm looking at his points. If he played literally exactly half of 82 games last year, and he scored 56 points. So he's at a 112-point pace. If he actually
puts 41 for you math majors out there.
If he does that this year, and that's just playing the same way he did last year, and he could easily improve on that, he's going to blow this offer out of the water with, how the cap's going and stuff like that. So yeah, it's definitely smart for him not to sign that deal. I think the Rangers always have as good a shot as anyone if they have the cap. As much as you want to poo-poo and that other fans will talk shit about the Rangers and we haven't won, and the team still has an aura that people want to play to them because they're one of the biggest teams in hockey in an original six. So God forbid this team ever can put together a magical season and win the Stanley Cup. Will literally become the destination, and that's what we're hoping Drury and Sullivan can do for this team. But I got to run to put a bow on this episode. We talked about it earlier, and we always end this episode. We always end their episodes with predictions for the next week, and we can't do that because there's no games coming up.
Bet? I was just going to say any bet, right? Like I have an NFL bet that I'd like to put out there, and I think I've been spoiled. I spoiled it well before I've brought it up. The New York Jets, and I know we talked about it last week. Obviously, with you being a Steelers fan, not the ideal outcome as a Jets fan, but I thought it was absolutely incredible game to watch.
It was a great football game. It was a great football game that those two teams never play that style. Defense, all offense.
As somebody that lives in Rochester, New York, that has been inundated with the Bills and Josh Allen's the greatest quarterback ever in football history, and James Cook and Keon Coleman are these second comings of Jesus Christ around here. Give me the Jets this week at plus 235 to come out against the Bills at MetLife. They play them well at MetLife. The Bills' rush defense looked like dog shit last week, and I'm not saying the Jets have Derrick Henry, but what's that line from the movie Moneyball? You recreate them in the aggregate. I think Justin Fields, Braylon Allen, and Breece Hall combined equal one Derrick Henry. I think the Jets take down the Bills, and they sit 1-1 going into week 3 with a tie for first in the AFC East. That's my bet of the week. You can take it if you want. If you don't, also so be it. I'm not a betting expert. Please let me tell you this. Let me tell you something. I'm not a betting expert, so please don't take my word as gospel. Sometimes it's just a vibe, and that's the vibe I've been getting all week. I think these Bills fans are a little too overhyped for a team that's never won a Super Bowl.
If you bet the Jets, you gotta bet them money line because I saw that line dropped from like 8.5 to 6.5. So people are buying the Jets. Like smart money is buying the Jets. So I'll stick with my team. Aaron Rodgers had a revenge tour last week. This week, DK Metcalf has a revenge tour against the Seahawks. I'm going to take DK Metcalf over 70.5 yards at plus 102, and I'm going to parlay that with the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup at plus 3,000.
Jesus Christ. If you want to take as well, the Mets to miss the playoffs, that's plus 250. You make money on that one. We're a podcast that wants to make you money. I know our let me just say this before I'm going to say whatever I'm about to say. Abundant Wealth Management does not endorse what I'm about to say, but we have a money management sponsor for this podcast, so we'll make you some money here. Just don't listen to us.
I got to run to my haircut down the street, so that's all I got. We're not doing Sundays until the season starts, so we'll be back next Thursday, right?
All right, boys. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you next Thursday.